In today's video on Capitol Hill, a study regarding vaccinated versus unvaccinated children was finally exposed. Secondly, the president went out to dinner in DC with his cabinet. And finally, the president also signed an executive order that affects Big Pharma advertising. And in all of these stories, we'll show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
The president just signed an executive order that's an historic change in the way that pharmaceutical advertising is done on television. And the order basically reinstates or gives us now the opportunity to reinstate the 1997 rules. Prior to 1997, pharmaceutical advertisers were required to put all the side effects on their ads. Many of them didn't advertise because it lengthened because of what it did to the length of the advertising. And that the removal of that requirement in 1997, FDA changed the rule to allow them to report the side effects on a website or on a telephone. And they only had to report a few of them on television. And that triggered a proliferation of these ads. There's only 2 countries in the world that allowed direct-to-consumer advertising by pharmaceutical companies on television. We're one of those countries. New Zealand is the other. It's had a disastrous impact on human health, on people's relationships with their doctors, and really on the entire gestalt where Americans are led to believe that there's a pill for every ill, and that you don't have to exercise, you don't have to pay attention to your diet. Whatever goes wrong with you, you can fix with a drug.
Bottom line up front, this is a huge announcement, but it's not the one that I was expecting. Let me explain. I'm talking about RFK Jr. banning ads completely from the cable networks, and that's not what we heard today. Now, it is a good step, and that is that they have to be more transparent with the side effects, and I believe that already exists, in my opinion. So obviously, we got to see what that looks like. But, you let me know. Do you think this is a good thing or not, now that these pharmaceutical companies are going to have to be more transparent about the side effects of their pills? And remember, America is only one of 2 countries that allows these pharmaceutical companies to advertise on cable networks. And don't let me forget, if he really banned it, it would put people like CNN out of business. Let's continue.
So how much does this change the dynamic for pharmaceutical companies that have been advertising on all kinds of channels and even online? They're going to have to do a lot more specifically. They're going to have to report all their side effects. In some cases, that might create an advertisement that's 4 minutes long. Back prior to 1997, advertising in magazines had page after page after side effects reported. And so we don't know exactly what it will do, but we know it's going to be better for the health of Americans.
Yeah, you see, this brings you to my first point, and that is you would think people from the left, especially Democrats, would commend the president for doing something like this, right? This is a huge win. This is an executive order. Now, will Congress follow suit? That's a great question, and we'll see what happens. But this is a good move. Now, I would like to see ads banned, obviously, off these cable networks. And we know if that was to happen, what's going to happen to people like CNN. But I digress. Now, the issue that comes up next between RFK Jr. and Bret Baier is the heat that RFK Jr. caught on Capitol Hill recently during his testimony last week. And now people are calling for him to resign. Well, here's what RFK Jr. had to say.
You just got done with a pretty contentious hearing up on Capitol Hill. You were hammered by senators, a lot of Democrats, but some Republicans, specifically on vaccine policy. After that hearing, there are now calls for more hearings about that and concerns about it. You fired the CDC director. After that hearing, what is the fallout for you? How do you look at it and your relationship with Capitol Hill?
We are doing our business. CDC is a broken agency. It's presided over the biggest decline in health of any country in the world. And we're going to change that. We have to make change there. We literally had the worst outcomes during COVID. We have the highest death count in the world. We have 4.2% of the world's population. We had 20% of the COVID deaths. That is not a winning record. I was brought in like a general manager of the losingest team in baseball, you would want them to make some changes when they come in, and we're making changes, and change always has its opponents. We're making changes for the best, for the betterment of the American peoples.
Now, what's interesting about the timing of this announcement from the president is what happened today on Capitol Hill during a testimony from a gentleman by the name of Aaron Siri. Now, this is a lawyer who got access to this study that was done in 2020 between children that were vaxxed and children that were unvaxxed. And it was a 10-year study. And the whole purpose of the study was to prove that people who do not believe in vaccines, that they're wrong, and that children who get vaccinated are much healthier than the children who are unvaccinated. And, you know, this is the first time he put this testimony out there because I guess through an NDA or this study was suppressed and people weren't allowed to talk about it until today. And I think you're going to be shocked by what he had to say. Take a look.
In early 2020, I received a copy of the study. It showed the results of the analysis comparing children enrolled in Henry Ford from 2000 to 2016 from birth onward who had no vaccines compared to those who had one or more vaccines. This study was based on actual medical records, meaning finally a large vaccinated versus unvaccinated study using health data from a major United States health institution, something, as the IOM pointed out, never existed before. The study began by explaining it set out to reduce vaccine hesitancy by assuring parents the CDC vaccine schedule is safe. Instead, what these researchers found was that vaccinated children had 4.29 times the rate of asthma, 3.03 times the rate of atopic disease, 5.96 times the rate of autoimmune disease, and 5.53 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders, which included 3.28 times the rate of developmental delay and 4.47 times the rate of speech disorder. All of these findings were statistically significant. There was also other conditions for which there were numerous cases in the vaccinated group, but zero in the unvaccinated group. Hence, a rate cannot be calculated, including brain dysfunction, ADHD, learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and tics. For example, there were 262 cases of ADHD in the vaccinated group, and there were none in the unvaccinated group.
Yeah, see, the results tell the story, all right? 4.29 times higher rate of asthma, 3 times higher for atopic disease, almost 6 times higher for autoimmune disease, 5.5 higher rate of neurodevelopment disorder. I mean, this is ridiculous, okay? But they tell you to trust the science. Now, that doesn't mean every vaccine on the planet is evil. But when you do a study of 16,000 children who have been vaccinated for 10 years, not 6 months, 10 years, not 5 days like they did with the COVID vaccine, by the way, 10 years, and this is the results, yeah, that's why there's vaccine hesitancy. Now, it begs the question, why weren't people told this back in 2020? Here's what he said.
These findings were troubling, including because these chronic health issues can be caused by immune system dysregulation, and vaccines can cause immune system dysregulation. Citations for this are in my written submission. Overall, the study found that after 10 years, 17% of the unvaccinated children had a chronic health issue, while 57% of the vaccinated children had at least one chronic health issue, often multiple. That's 17 versus 57%. The only real problem with this study and why it didn't get submitted for publication is that its findings did not fit the belief and the policy that vaccines are safe. Had it found vaccinated children were healthier, it no doubt would have been published immediately.
All right, so for the people in the back, bottom line is 2,000 of the unvaccinated children did not have ADHD. And let's just stop there. We don't even have to go to chronic disease, asthma, all of that. Let's just do ADHD. How much money has the pharmaceutical industry made off ADHD? How many children have been diagnosed with ADHD incorrectly? I was one of those. I received Ritalin when I was a child, and let me tell you right now, it didn't work. But again, they want you to trust the science. I think we should be questioning science and then let the data and the results tell us the story. But that's just me. Now we go to our next story, and that is the president actually went out to dinner, DC, in the streets, made an appearance, took everybody off guard, by the way, and he took some questions And some of them were interesting, and I think you're going to enjoy them, but also the reaction from this outing from the president that was unannounced. Take a look.
Breaking news, President Trump moments ago making a public show of going out to dinner in the nation's capital. Why? Well, he went out with Vice President Vance and other cabinet members to an upscale steak and seafood restaurant. And he did this, a big performance, to show how safe Washington is, that it is safe enough to do this because of his crime crackdown. The restaurant he went to, 2 blocks from the White House. And the reality is early numbers do show crime going down in Washington. Since the start of Trump's takeover, homicides in Washington are down more than 60%, car thefts down 35%, robbery down nearly 20%, overall violent crime reports down about 10%. Tourism and restaurant foot traffic also down.
Okay, so number one, what do we have? We have CNN admitting the results that President Trump has been able to get for the people of D.C. Number two, you're still going to see Democrats fight aggressively against this strategy from the president, and I'm going to call that insanity. Number three, you have something positive that the president has accomplished, and of course, he's not going to get credit for it. And finally, you have the president taking questions right outside that establishment, and here is the first one. Take a look.
I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago. This was one of the most unsafe cities in the country. Now it's as safe as there is in the country. So we're here with cabinet members having dinner, and everybody should go out. Thank you. Thank you. The restaurants now are booming. People are going out to dinner where they didn't go out for years, and it's a safe city. And I just want to thank the National Guard. We loved working with the mayor and the chief, and we all work together, and the outcome is really spectacular. We have a capital that's very, very safe right now.
The president is not only getting results, but he's also entertaining. He also knows how to sell the results, right? He's in front of the camera actually doing something. What are the Democrats doing in front of a camera all day? They're crying and screaming and protesting, right? But they're not actually doing anything. There's a true difference here. And see, that's, I think, a great life lesson is you're always going to have people who disagree with you. But you know what's more important? What results are you truly getting? What are the results you're getting for your family, for your business, your career, your life? That's the only thing that truly matters, because that's the story. Now, let's hear from Governor Westmore, because, you know, CNN, they always know how to minimize what the president is doing. And who better than the governor who continues to refuse to get help from the president, even though Baltimore is a crime-ridden city? Take a look.
I mean, those are really impressive numbers. They also very closely mirror the numbers that we've seen in Baltimore during that same period of time. And the thing that we know is that, you know, for a place like Maryland, where I've come in and said that public safety is my #1 priority, and we made historic investments in local law enforcement, historic investments in technologies and predictive analytics, historic investments in community groups, that the President of the United States has now been spending well over $1 million a day to ask citizen soldiers, members of the National Guard, to come and do municipal policing in areas and in spaces that they are not trained for. But the reality is what the National Guard has been doing has been things like raking mulch and picking up trash and painting fences. And so while the numbers that we have seen in Washington, D.C., they are impressive and they are important, we also know that it's very closely mirrored to what Baltimore has had during that same period of time. And when you look at the past 2.5 years over a sustained period of time in the state of Maryland, well, that's the National Guard, but that's why it's also important to remember that we need the right tools for the right mission. And what we are seeing from the President of the United States is not a crime-fighting strategy. It is a performative strategy.
Baltimore is still ranked 5th in homicides. So I don't know why he's up there trying to celebrate what he's done for Baltimore. The fact of the matter is the president was able to get those results faster than you were, Governor. That's for sure. Then he complains about the cost. So wait a minute, you would rather millions of dollars go to illegal aliens instead of going to National Guard troops, right? Where they take the money, pay for their family, provide for their family, build a career. No, you don't like that. You think that's too much money. No, paying illegal aliens to continue to commit crimes in sanctuary cities, that's too much money. And by the way, you can't put a cost on an American citizen's life. Let's be real.
Look, the other day I walked the entire mall down to Lincoln. I watched kids where parents sat on a bench and let their kids just run because they were safe. young and smiling and happy. And what you want in every city in America, and I still don't understand why Democrats want to fight it. You know, this is why they won't win again. Look, if you went back to when Clinton was in, you know what Clinton did once they got wiped out in 94? He pivoted and started putting cops on the streets, right? He started saying, the era of big government's over. He wanted to compete with Republicans on ideas. The Democrats are going further left, and it just shows their lack of leadership. Here you are, you're going to get a socialist elected in New York City as the mayor, and the two Democrat leaders are from New York. They couldn't find somebody to run, and they can't even make up their mind if they want to endorse them or not.
More than anything, it's how the American people feel, especially the people in D.C., especially the people in Baltimore, especially the people in Chicago and across this country. If they feel that crime is an issue, doesn't matter what it says on paper, then it is an issue. But Democrats are still going to argue against it. And that's why I agree with Mr. Kevin McCarthy there, that they're just going to continue to dig their own grave. And I think it's on the Republicans to lose these elections at this point. Now, just to prove my point, no pun intended, hear what J.B. Pritzker said earlier this morning as it pertains to receiving help from the president.
So I've made very clear, I think all of you have heard me say, that there are ways that he can help us. I just named one of them. We would love to have more help from ATF and FBI and DEA. Well, let me be clear that if I pick up the phone and call Donald Trump, that will become part of a case in court that I somehow was calling him for help. And therefore, it will become predicate to him sending military troops into the state of Illinois. If I called him, I would say exactly what I have said to all of you. By the way, he hasn't called me either. And he doesn't seem to want to talk directly to me. He just wants to talk to television cameras and berate the people of Chicago and berate the people of Illinois and attack the city of Chicago. And I reject that entirely, and it doesn't deserve any response except the one that I have given.
Okay, well, the reality, once again, is that he's not berating the people of Chicago or the people of Illinois, okay? He's not attacking Chicago. In fact, the people who are attacking Chicago are these criminal illegal aliens, the gangs, the violent thugs and criminals who commit crime against the people of Chicago. So why are you not making press conferences about those individuals? But hey, you cry that he's in front of a camera. You've been in front of a camera yourself. So it's interesting how Democrats, again, become the very thing that they say they're fighting against. And it's just unfortunate. Now, we get back to this appearance that the president made at the restaurant. They asked him a question about Epstein. Let's hear what he said.
Will you meet with the Epstein victims? Do you plan to meet with?
I don't know about, nobody suggested that. Certainly, I don't like that whole situation with respect to anybody being abused or hurt, but I haven't even thought about that. Thank you all very much. Have a good time. Thank you.
All right, so that was the president, once again, responding to Epstein in the situation. He says he hasn't heard about meeting with the victims. We don't know that to be true or not. But I will say this. If I was in charge of communications for the Trump administration and President Trump actually cared about what I thought, I would definitely be saying, yeah, Mr. President, two things could be true at the same time. Recognize the victims, bring them into the Oval Office, play their game with them, and then use it against them. And I'm talking about Democrats. And then it's also true that Democrats only care about this because they just want to use these victims as political pawns. That's what's actually going on here. Now, let's hear the White House press secretary make that very point earlier this morning. Take a look.
You addressed the crime of Irina Zarutska, and the president has done a lot to deliver justice for victims of crimes like that horrific stabbing. And the Epstein files are back in the news because a lot of Americans feel that that Jeffrey Epstein's victims never got justice. Does the president care about these victims? Do you think he can does he want to deliver more justice for them, and is he willing to meet with them?
The president cares about victims of all crimes, and that's why Republicans in the Trump Department of Justice have done more in terms of transparency when it comes to the Epstein case than any prior administration. And why are the Democrats all of a sudden caring about this? It's because they are desperately trying to concoct a hoax to smear the president of the United States. We have seen this time and time again. Ro Khanna and all of these other Democrats, they could have cared about those victims 4 years ago when Joe Biden was in office. They could have pushed for transparency then. Unfortunately, the Democrats are using victims as political pawns to try to smear and to push a hoax against the President of the United States. And I will get you numbers on the amount of child predators that this administration and this FBI and this Department of Justice have locked up under President Trump's leadership. We have done more than any president to protect victims of crime, especially disgusting, heinous sexual crimes. And that includes the deportation of illegal aliens who are perpetrating these crimes against innocent victims in our country right now today. And that remains a top priority for this administration.
Okay, so why don't I get your guys' reaction in the comment section to what she just said? Do you agree that this administration has been transparent regarding the Epstein files? Now, let me also ask you this. Do you think it truly matters that they're transparent surrounding the Epstein files? And my final question is, do you believe the president is responding the way he is because he has to cover for somebody, he's protecting somebody? I don't believe he's protecting himself because he's not guilty of anything. He has zero allegations regarding this. I mean, let's just think about it. The guy was sued by Mrs. Carroll, who's deranged, for sexual assault, but he didn't get any allegations in regards to this. So clearly he's good on this. I just want to know what you guys think about all of it, especially whether or not you agree with his messaging surrounding this. Let me know what you guys think about all that in the comment section below. All right, now we go to our next story, and this is about Israel, particularly Netanyahu ordering an airstrike in Doha, Qatar. Yeah, in that location earlier this morning. President claims he knew nothing about it, had some words for Netanyahu, but we'll read that to you. Here is the story. Take a look.
Breaking news this hour, Trump now trying to distance himself from Bibi Netanyahu's strike against Hamas in Qatar after a U.S. official told CNN that Trump was only informed of the strike shortly before it began by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Trump now saying, quote, "This was a decision made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was not a decision made by me." Well, trying to distance himself, perhaps, after the incredible onslaught of worldwide condemnation of Netanyahu and Israel. European, Arab nations, the UN, seems across the board. The strike involved 10 fighter jets. It happened in a sovereign country, right? A sovereign country, Qatar. It's a real place. Qatar also happens to be the center, the middle of talks to try to end the war in Gaza.
Yeah, and so here is the president writing this long message earlier today. And basically, the bottom line is he says it was too late to call off this attack. That's number one. Number two, he views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States, and he feels very badly about the location of the attack. He definitely wants all the hostages and bodies of the dead released and this war to end now. But then notice what he says next. I also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told me that he wants to make peace. I believe this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. And that's the president, once again, being optimistic about his strategy here. The fact of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, according to Netanyahu, he had no choice to do this. We're talking about Hamas leadership. He had to take him out. And other people disagree with that. In fact, this could cause all peace talks to pretty much cease in this whole region. And according to CNN, it could also spark the next World War III. I mean, they're going to play Armageddon with this, of course.
Yeah, I mean, shock and anger, I think, would be the way to describe not just how people and the leadership here in Qatar feel this evening, but people in the leaderships around this part of the world, the Arab Gulf nations and wider. Look, we've heard language like this: shameful, treacherous, a criminal act that threatens to further undermine the stability and security of this entire region. The Qatar Prime Minister talking about Israel tonight as a rogue nation, a bully, describing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as narcissistic, frankly warning this region and beyond that there is a clear message here and around the world about just who this region is dealing with.
Yeah, see, the bottom line here that we need to know about this update here is it begs the question, why do you have Hamas terrorists inside of Qatar? Can someone answer that question? Even if you have IDS, Israel Derangement Syndrome, even if you don't, and you just disagree with what Netanyahu has been up to lately, how could Qatar justify allowing Hamas leadership to reside there? That makes no sense. And I think that is a question that definitely deserves an answer. And if they don't answer it, then what can we really tell someone like Netanyahu, who is hell-bent on taking out Hamas? I think those are legitimate questions, okay? Let me know if you guys know what the answers are to them. Now, here is Speaker Johnson, who was actually caught off guard by this announcement earlier. Take a look.
Second question for anyone. As we were all driving and walking in here, Israel struck Qatar to take out Hamas leadership. I'm curious if any of you think that whoever survives there should be evicted from Qatar.
I don't know anything about that development. That's news to me. I've been a little busy the last couple hours, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, look. I was in Israel myself a few weeks ago in early August. It's a very dangerous time there, and they have enemies encamped around them, and they're trying to bring that to a peace as well. But Hamas, by anybody who looks at this reasonably, and in my view, this is my personal view, that Hamas has to be eradicated. You've got to remove that threat on the immediate border, and frankly, within the bounds of Israel.
So this Israel thing, it's really a tough one because it's so heated on both sides of the debate. But it makes me question, will this be enough for President Trump to change his tune, okay, regarding what Netanyahu has been doing? I'm really interested to see if that's going to take place, because there's no question, one side, they say Israel is at fault for everything. I call that IDS. And then the other side says, hey, you know what? We got to support him no matter what. Doesn't matter the cost. Take Hamas out. And I think these issues are going to continue to get more divisive as time goes on. And, if it was me, I'd be like, hey, listen, whatever they got going on over there, that's between them. We need to focus on things that are happening in our country today. That's what matters. All right, so let's get your guys' comments below. First, starting with this airstrike, do you support what Netanyahu is doing? Yes or no? Explain your reasoning. Secondly, the announcement from RFK Jr., President Trump signing that executive order. What do you make of that? That's going to force advertisers to be more transparent about the side effects. Also, what is your reaction to the now public acknowledgement of the study? 10 years of children vaccinated, they have a higher rate of chronic illness, 56% versus unvaccinated children at 17%. I think the results tell the story. Let me know how you guys feel about that. And then President Trump making his rounds in D.C. Just give me all your thoughts about everything we discussed in this video in the comment section below. Now, in our next video, Tom Homan exploded on MSNBC this morning during his interview with Morning Joe. He had to school them on what immigration law truly is. If you guys missed out on that exchange and more stories from earlier today, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.